Hello, my crafting friends. Do you want to see how I take 4th of July Dollar Tree items and turn them into beautiful, primitive farmhouse patriotic home decor? Then come craft with me. My name is Sarah, and welcome to my channel, Primrose Lane Prims. If you haven't done so already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button, and let's jump right into these Dollar Tree DIYs. First item I grabbed was this little Dollar Tree 4th of July gnome. These are $1.50. They have these in several different styles, but I grabbed this one. It has the little flag-looking head. It reminded me of a little Uncle Sam, and I thought we could easily transform this into a primitive Uncle Sam little gnome to sit. I think it would be adorable. So I'm going to pop off that tag, and then I'm going to cut this little side tag off here flush down the side so that's not sticking out. And it has this little felt USA sign on the front. It's hot glued on, and I'm going to very, very carefully pull this off. I don't want to use this little sign, but I want to be careful not to rip the felt that this little guy is made out of. So just very slowly pulling it, and it will come off. You just kind of got to go slow with it so that you don't rip the felt underneath. And this little sign it's covered in glitter, and it gets glitter everywhere, like all over my hands. And as much as I do like glitter sometimes, not in this case. So I'm going to just trim off a little bit of this hot glue that was still left on his little belly here. Just lift up little bits of this felt, kind of pull up the little fringe that it left and trim that down, cuts off that hot glue. There's a little bit left on his hand, but I'm going to do something with that here after a bit, and you're not going to notice that when I'm done. I just want to make sure I get most of this off his belly that's not hidden by his beard. So here's what he's looking like without his little sign. Now I want to give this guy a little bit of distressing. So I'm going to take my little bowl here. I'm going to mix up some Waverly Antique Wax with a little bit of water. I'm just going to water this down a little bit. I want to give this guy kind of like a tea staining look, but without the tea staining. I'm just going to lightly go over, and I'm mixing maybe about 2 tablespoons of water to a tablespoon or so of my antique wax. It's not a lot. I don't want to drench this little guy. I want him to get that stained look without being soaked. Does that make sense? So I will dab off most of the water on my brush and start going over him and giving him a nice antiqued look to the felt, especially the white and the red. Now I want to give his beard a little dye job as well. It's pretty white, but like I said, I want this little guy to be primitive. I want him to be rustic, kind of fit in that antique farmhouse look. So I'm going to take my watered down antique wax here, and I'm going to start lightly going over and then using my finger to really comb that water wax mixture into his beard. We're just going to give it, this is like a wash-in. It's a just for men gnomes edition. So his beard is getting a little wet, but we'll dry it here and just comb that down in, just using my fingers, working that watery wax mixture just in and throughout his beard to give it this light brown, off-white kind of color to his beard. Go around his nose here, and I'm gonna go on his shoes. I really want to get that white, all these little white stars. I want to make sure that those have an off-white look to them instead of that stark white. I'm gonna lightly go over his whole body. So here he is wet, and I'm going to stick him over here in front of my little fan and let him dry. Now while he is drying, I want to work on the little sign for the front of him. And I'm just taking a scrap piece of my painter's drop cloth that I have here. This is just a regular old painter's drop cloth. You can get any hardware store. Amazon has them. And I'm just going to cut a little strip here. I'm going to cut 3 triangles out of this, and I'm just kind of eyeballing these using the edges of each triangle as the start of my next one. So I'll cut my first one out here, flip it around, use the angle from that last one I cut to cut a second, flip it around again, and do the same. I'm just going to make a little banner that's going to go across his front here out of these. And you could use muslin or any other type of fabric. This was just some scrap that I had laying there that'd be perfect for this. Now I'm going to grab my Apple Barrel paint pen. This is a ultra fine tipped paint pen from Walmart in the color black. And I'm just going to go over and write USA on my little banner darts. And I'm just freehanding these just as best I can. Now I'm going to go in with some more of my Waverly Antique Wax. This is not the watered down. I'm just using a little bit from the jar, just a dry brush real lightly on and around these, distress these a little bit, give these a little bit of that worn look to match the rest of it. And I'm just going real lightly. And then I'm going to actually take some of my watered down mixture, just a small amount here, and I'm going to hit edges, just certain places, just to kind of soak in that fabric, and a little bit here and there to give it some darker areas as well. Not coating the whole thing, not soaking the whole thing in the wet mixture, just little sections to give it a little bit of darker areas of grunge here and there. And then once those have dried, I'm going to take my thicker jute twine here. This is from Walmart, and I'm going to cut about a foot or so length. I want this to be a little long, and you'll see why here in a minute. I'm going to put stuff on the end to help hold it flat. That helps when gluing our little banner darts on. And I'm just going to line these up. Start with my S, run a strip of hot glue right along the back of that drop cloth, and put it right in the center of my jute twine. And I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch or so in between each banner dart. I want them really close together, but just slightly separated enough that you can see just a little bit of that twine peeking out between each little banner dart. I'm going to take and I'm going to fray the edges of my drop cloth here a little bit so they look a little rusted, a little ragged. It's been hanging around for a while, so the edges are frayed just a little bit. There it is. Cute little USA banner. So now that little Uncle Sam gnome is dried, this is what he looks like. So you can see his beard's all dry, and it's just got that nice dirty blonde beige kind of tone instead of the stark white, which is exactly what I was going for. And the little banner I want to attach right on his hand. So I'm going to just lay it across here kind of where I want it, line it up with where his little hands are, and I'm going to tie a knot right on the ends of each one, kind of right where it will land in his hands. There's going to be extra hanging over the end, but that's okay. That's what we want. So I'm going to glue the knot down first, and this is going to help hide that hot glue mark that was left from that original USA sign on. So the knots are glued down, and now with this excess, this is why I wanted this left a little longer. I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap it around his hands right where that blue meets the red, kind of give a little distinction, a little cuff right around to mark his sleeve from his little hand, or little mitten, I guess. I'm not sure. Guess it would be a little mitten he's wearing. I'm just going to run a little line of hot glue right on that seam and wrap that twine all the way around. Just adds a nice little finishing touch to his arms. And do the same thing on this other side. Just run line of hot glue right where those two colors meet and glue that twine. So we'll adjust this little sign here, get it hanging straight, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of hot glue to the center banner dart to glue it down to some. That way it doesn't slide around, it doesn't move around, and it stays put where I want it to. Now, after this dried, the red here just was a little too bright still for what I was going for. So I went back in with my antique wax, not the watered down, just regular antique wax, and I started dry brushing this in and around the red and the white, and then adding some smudge spots too, just to give a little bit darker grunging here or there. And if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to drop down and hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button and crafting again with me in the future. It's completely free, and I post new videos every single week. And also, I hope you'll consider hitting that hype button. It's another free way just to support creators and let YouTube know you enjoy the video and to share it with even more folks that have maybe not seen my channel yet. So after I've added the extra grunging to his hat and feet, I want to go in and add a little more to his hat. I'm going to start to run a little bit of hot glue right where the brim of his hat meets the top. And I'm just going to take my thicker jute twine again, and I'm going to run that all the way around this little meeting area here. I'm going to start in the back, just wrap it all the way around. Just give a little distinction, a little bit more to his hat here. I think it adds to it quite a bit, gives it a little more of that rustic feel. I think twine gives everything a little more rustic feel. I love using twine. Snip that off and then just glue that down right there in the back. Sometimes it's just little things like that can just make such a difference. Now I want to add some more embellishments to his hat, and I'm going to go in with this pitberry and star pick that I have here. You probably saw me use this last week. I like to borrow from it quite a bit. And I'm going to take some of the blue and these cream berries off of it, kind of picking and choosing which color berries. And I'm going to take about 4 little stems of this, put them together and twist it around, kind of roll it up at the bottom, make a little bundle out of these. I want this to go on his hat and embellish his hat and stick up. So as you can see, the little rolled up end's going to go right kind of off-centered to the, if I'm facing him, to the left of his hat. I'm going to use some hot glue and just tack that down right there, right above that twine. And then I'm going to borrow one of these cream colored stars as well off of this pick. And I want this to go right at the bottom of my pitberries, hide where that stem is attached to the hat. Right there, just some hot glue. Just watch your fingers. That metal can heat up for sure. Now I'm going to take my brush that still has a little bit of wax left on it from where I did some grunging there, and I'm just going to lightly dry brush it around the edges of the star, just kind of give this cream perfect star just a little bit of illusion of maybe a little rust around the edges, just a little bit. Just give it a little antiquing like the rest of our little Uncle Sam gnome. Now I want to add more to his feet here because they just kind of remind me of flat little duckbill feet. So I want to add a little more, and I'm going to go in with my twine once again and add a strip of hot glue right where his little feet meet his body, and glue a strip of this twine right there on each foot. Give a little distinction once again between his body and his feet. And then we're gonna make him some little like shoe buckles, except instead of buckles, he's going to have bows. So I'm gonna take my thinner jute twine here and just tie two little small shoestring bows. And we're gonna hot glue those right on top of that twine that we glued on his feet. Give him his little bow buckles. See? Just a small strip of hot glue right on that twine. And what a difference just a couple little bows make. Look how cute he's looking. Now I wanted around his hat here, it felt like it was still missing something. So I just grabbed a really small amount of some dried Spanish moss, and I'm going to hot glue it and tuck it right behind the star. There was just a little bit of space between his hat and that star that was kind of sticking up. Felt like it needed something there. And this Spanish moss was the perfect addition. Just filled it in that backspace, hot glued it in there, and it did the trick. Now, last thing I think for real this time, I'm going to grab one of my paper tags. This is from Amazon, but I know Dollar Tree also has these little paper tags in different sizes that you can find in the craft section. And I'm just going to write "We the People" in quotation marks with my fine tip Sharpie marker. And I'm going to give it a little crumple up here, use my antique wax to distress it. You can use whatever distressing method you like. If you have the distressing ink, you prefer that instead. Whatever works for you or you have on hand. I'm just going to make this tag look a little antique to know, just like the rest of our little gnome Uncle Sam here. Add a little hot glue to both sides and tuck it right down underneath the corner of that star, kind of sticking out along his hat so that we can see what it says. Adjust the pip berries a little bit, and here is our little $1.50 Dollar Tree Uncle Sam. Here's the before and the after. I absolutely love how this little guy turned out, and he is so much fun to make. The next item in Dollar Tree that caught my eye were these little bottle caps. They have these in several different designs, but I decided to go with this little red truck. Said, "God bless America." I thought this would be perfect for a little primitive farmhouse. We can antique this up. So that's the one I grabbed, but any of these I think would look really cute. You could do this too. And I'm just going to start off. I'm going to take this twine hanger off of here and set that aside. And I want to give this little bottle cap some grunging here. I want this to look like it is an old rusty thing that's been hanging maybe in your grandpa's barn for quite a while, for many years, exposed to the weather. It's got some rust going on it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do some faux rust here. So I'm going to take my matte finish Mod Podge, and I'm going to go all around the edge here, all these places where the silver is showing, and I'm going to give it a coat of this matte finish Mod Podge. You want to be sure to get it up around the lip because you can see it kind of extends over onto the front of this little bottle cap some as well. Then I'm going to go in with my ground cinnamon, and I'm just going to coat this. Every area I put the Mod Podge, I'm going to completely coat it in the cinnamon. I'm just going to take my finger and I'm going to press the cinnamon down into that Mod Podge really good. Kind of shake off the excess, make sure it's completely covered. And I want to go around the front here just a little bit. Here and there in areas, I'm going to add a little bit of Mod Podge and let this faux rust, the cinnamon grunge, kind of extend a little bit onto the front here and there, kind of like there's maybe places of the sign that the rust is extended around to the front, starting to cover a little bit of the words around the section here. Just kind of use my finger, tap it in, wipe off any excess. Like I said, I just want to make this look like it was naturally kind of rusting. Now I'm going to let that dry, oh, maybe about 5 minutes or so. It really wasn't that long. I didn't time it, but it really wasn't more than 5 minutes. And then I'm going to take another layer of the Mod Podge and I'm going to start dabbing it all over my cinnamon. And I'm dabbing here, not swiping, because I don't want to swipe and smear it. Sometimes I do when I do these types of grunging, but here I want to dab because I want this texture to stay real grubby looking. I don't want it to smear and slide. I want it to kind of have that rough texture that the dabbing will give it. And I'm going to go around the front here, all the places I put cinnamon in the front. And once it's all covered with that second layer, I'm just going to take a little bit of the excess cinnamon here. I'm going to start sprinkling it all on top again. This is going to add another layer, except I'm not going to put Mod Podge over this layer. It'll kind of add a two-tone color to the cinnamon once it dries. And as you can see here, now that it is completely dry, I let this dry for several hours till it was completely dry. And this is what it looks like. And it really does give the look of rust, like an old bottle cap sign that was hanging in an old barn for years. And it just naturally started to rust from the elements. And that's exactly what I was going for. So I was going to originally use the twine hanger to put back on this, but then I decided, you know what? I want to add a rusty wire hanger to kind of match this rusty look of the rest of it. So I just grabbed my rusty wire that I get off of Amazon. I'm going to pop it through that hole, use my wire cutters to twist this around into a knot on the side so that it doesn't pop back through. Measure out a little length and do the same thing on the other side. So here's what we've got so far. Now I want to take some scraps of my homespun. I just have this kind of red and cream and this little star scraps that I have. And I'm going to take one of the red and cream. I'm going to just tie it in a knot right at the top. And then I'm going to take one of the star ones, little blue and cream with the star homespun. And I'm going to tie that in a knot as well, right over top of that red and cream. Kind of angle those down there, pull them down. I'm going to take another strip of this red and cream, kind of fold it in half and just tie a little shoestring bow here out of it. And I'm going to hot glue it right to the center of my homespun that I tied onto the handle. Trim some of these, all the little strings off. Homespun loves to get stringy. These are perfect to add to the knob of a hutch or on a little peg shelf. I think these turn out so cute. Now my fabric here, my blue fabric, looked a little thick, so I just trimmed it in half and just ripped it in half to give it ended up having 4 tails of it hanging down just a little thinner. I thought that looked better. Now the last thing I wanted to do was go into the front of this and just with my antique wax, lightly go over and add just a little bit more to some of the areas that I didn't put the cinnamon, just to give it like it's slightly starting to rust there, but it hasn't rusted to the point of bubbling up yet. And here is what it looks like. And oh my gosh, I absolutely love this. You get an adorable, rusty little bottle cap sign without the risk of tetanus, and it smells good. Win-win. And here is Molly. She got a new ball. Well, it's actually an old ball, but she just found it again, so it's new to her again. And she was being very playful and cute, so I thought I'd let her say hi. Now for this next DIY, they have these adorable little farmhouse beads. They have them in hearts and circles and this little Uncle Sam hat. And I grabbed the Uncle Sam hat one because, well, hey, we've kind of had a theme of Uncle Sam stuff going on this year around here on my channel if you hadn't noticed. But these are really cute as they are, but I thought we can make these a little more primitive here. Just dress them up a little bit. This is a really fast and easy, quick one. So this has this little dark blue and cream ribbon that's on the end, and it's really cute, but there was only the 2 strips, and I thought I'm going to cut these in half here and kind of adjust them around so that it looks like there's more ribbon in this tassel and a little more evenly distributed. See, just by cutting those 2 pieces of ribbon in half and doing that, it really makes a big difference. Now, next I want to go in with my apple barrel paint pen here and the color black. And like I said, this is an ultra fine tip one from Walmart. And I'm just going to write 1776 right on the brim of this hat. And while that is drying, I'm going to go back over here to the tassel and I'm going to take my thinner jute twine and just tie a small little shoestring bow. And I want to attach this. You can kind of see here where they tied this tassel off a little bit of that twine that's kind of hanging over. And I thought a little bow right here will help hide that a little bit and give it just a little extra. Now, once my numbers are dry over here, I'm going to go in with a piece of sandpaper and I'm going to sand all around my edges and a little bit in the center here, really scuff this up, distress these edges just a little bit, give it that nice primmy look, distressed look. I'm going to take my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm going to start dry brushing this all over all the beads. I want to give all of these beads a coat of the antique wax here, and I'm putting it on a little thick to start with. I want to give this, instead of a stark white, I just want that more muted, that more antiqued, primitive look to these colors. And while those beads are drying just a little bit, I'm going to do the same thing with my hat. I'm going to start dry brushing this wax right over top my hat, hitting all those places that I sanded, getting that wax down in there, and just giving this nice, pretty distressed look front, back, and sides. I'm going to hit the little ribbon on the tassel as well, give it just a little bit of distressing too. Because why not? We love primitive distressed grunge around here. Now, once this is dried for a few, I'm going to take my brush and I'm not putting anything extra on it. I'm just going to start brushing over top of these beads again. And it's just going to kind of smooth out that wax. The wax is still a little bit tacky when I'm doing this, and it just kind of smooths it out, takes off some of that excess. So we still have that antique look, but it's not quite so thick on there, just a little smoother. Then the last thing I'm going to do is right here on the top of my hat, I'm going to tie another little shoestring twine bow just to make that look like it's what's help hanging that hat onto these beads. And once it's completely dried, I'm going to pop it in my tiered tray and look how Stinking cute it turned out. For this last DIY, we're going to make another little shelf sitter or thing to put on a tiered tray. And I'm going to grab one of these little pallets you can get at the Dollar Tree in the crafter section. And I'm going to give the back and the sides and all the areas in between a good coat of my Waverly Antique Wax to stain it to start off. Just want to really get that wax, get it in between there on those all the little boards that are kind of in the center too. So you can see the back sides, but I left the front just the natural wood. And I grabbed a pack of these flag napkins, oh my goodness, from the Dollar Tree. And I cut off one section of these and I'm going to pull this apart. So just the top layer of the napkin is all we're going to be using. Now for the front, I'm going to take my matte finish Mod Podge and I'm going to give this a good coat all across the front of my little palette here. I'm going to take and I'm going to kind of line up my flag. I want to make sure I get part of the stars up in the corner as well as the stripes. Just kind of line it up as best I can and start pressing that down into my Mod Podge. Press it in there really good. There might be a few little wrinkles and that's okay. It kind of adds, I think, to this whole rustic look a little bit. They don't bother me. Once I have this pressed in, I'm going to take and add another layer of Mod Podge over top of my napkin, and I'm going to let that dry completely. After it's dry, I'm just going to grab my little piece of sandpaper here, and I'm just going to sand down in a downward motion to get all of those excess edges off nice and clean all the way around my little palette. So once it's all done, you can see what it looks like here. Now the front, you're going to notice there's still napkin in between those little palette edges, but no worries, we're going to take care of those. I'm just going to use my fingernail here and just swipe right down the center of those to just score that napkin. And then taking a small piece of my sandpaper, I'm going to do the same thing with these edges. I'm just going to sand off that excess napkin that's hanging over there on both sides so that it's a nice clean edge. See, nice and clean. Now continue doing that for the rest. And here's what it looks like once it is all sanded off. Now I'm going to go in once again with my Waverly Antique Wax and I'm going to go over the top of this and just distress this. And I noticed here I didn't paint these little center palette pieces here. So I am going to go in and just hit those little edges there that I missed. And then just distress with my antique wax all around the edges, a little bit in the center here. Give this that nice antiqued farmhouse look that we're going for. So that is it for this one. So easy, so simple, so budget friendly. Pop it into a tiered tray or even on a shelf just to add a little patriotic flair to your decorating. So that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, I hope you'll consider subscribing and crafting again with me in the future. I would love to have you join me again. Don't forget to follow me on socials. And until next time, God bless and happy crafting.